Hare Krishna, Gauri Mataji, sorry for the delay. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
did they drop off or nobody joined?
No, nobody joined yet. I was also late.
Oh, okay. No worries. So we'll get started. Uh, yeah, I'll share my screen soon. We're going to, you'll join us, but we'll start off. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा तदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शबानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. The translations and purports to chapter 13 Bhagavad Gita by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Chapter 13 Bhagavad Gita. Okay. The chapter heading is Nature, Enjoyer and Consciousness. So, in this chapter, after the the last chapter, which is chapter 12, where Krishna spoke about the Bhakti Yoga process, upon Krishna Arjuna's question, he elaborately described the process of Bhakti and what are the various stages of Bhakti and what are the qualities that endears him that he would like to see in his devotees and how this process is the easiest process compared to the other processes. That's what he spoke. Now, in the beginning, the first 6 chapters is where the Bhakti is described through Karma Yoga. Bhakti process described through Karma Yoga is the first 6 chapters. The last 6 chapters, which is where we are starting 13th chapter onwards till 18th, is Bhakti is by the process of Jnana. The essence of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti. So the first 6 chapters are by the process of Karma. The last 6 chapters are by the process of Jnana. And the middle 6 chapters are pure Bhakti, where Krishna is enunciating the Bhakti is the essence of any activity that one does and is the source of everything that is there in the universe. So the 13th chapter onwards is the Jnana, where it is mostly like the knowledge part, which is very technical. So Arjuna starts off with this question, rather a technical question as to what is he is going to ask some questions. So that's the first verse on this chapter. And then Krishna starts, will explain. Will explain about 6 questions are asked. He answers 3 questions in the 2 to 7 verses. Followed by that, he will answer, elaborates on the jnana, which is the one of the third question, basically. One of the questions. So he elaborates 8 to 12 verses on the process of jnana. And then there is also one more question. So the questions are, what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Gyayam. So these are 6 questions. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Gyayam. So those are the answers he gives. The 3, 4, 5 question, the answers he gives in verses 2 to 7. The elaboration of the fifth question is given in 8 to 12. The last question, Nyayam, object of knowledge, is 13 to 19. Then he comes to the first, Prakriti and Purusha, and their union. What is the connection between Prakriti and Purusha in 20 to 26? And finally, he talks about the vision of knowledge, Jnana Chakshu, how one can see the Lord through Jnana Chakshu. 27 to 35. So this chapter is 35 verses. Okay. So that's the chapter breakdown. Now we'll go to the verses itself. Yeah. I think 1 and 2 are together actually, but we divide it. First question is by Arjuna, second question onwards is by Krishna. It's not too big purport. I will read this and then you can read Gauramataji next one. If anybody joins, we'll continue, but otherwise we'll continue.
Okay.
श्री अर्जुन उवाच प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव क्षेत्रं क्षेत्रज्ञम् एव च एतद्वेदितुम् इच्छामि ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं च केशव श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमिति अभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः. Synonyms. Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said, Prakritim, nature, Purusham, the enjoyer, Cha also, Eva certainly, Kshetram, the field, Kshetrajnam, the knower of the field, Eva certainly, Cha also, Etat, all this, Veditam, to understand, Ichchami, I wish, Jnanam, knowledge, Gyayam, the object of knowledge, Cha also, Keshava, O Krishna, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of Godhead said, Idam, this, Shariram, body, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Kshetram, the field, Iti, thus, Abhidiyate is called, Etat, this, Yaha, one who, Vetti, knows, Tam, he, Prahuhu is called, Kshetrajnaha, the knower of the field, iti, thus, tadvitaha, by those who know this. Translation. Arjuna said, O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. Purport. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetrajna, its knower, and knowledge, and the object of the knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called kshetra or field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called kshetrajna, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the field of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, He undergoes so many changes of body and yet is still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehinosmin, that the living entity is within the body and that the body is changing from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to the youth and from youth to old age. And the person who owns the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly kshetrajna. Sometimes we think I'm happy, I'm man, I'm woman, I'm dog, I'm a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field of activities. And the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle six chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities, as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This is also explained. Okay. Now, the six questions itself are described, which are Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, the field, which is actually the body. Body is like the playground. Field is nothing but the playground. We play with this body, like we are uh, nothing but we are conducting ourselves is like this is our playground. That is why it's called field. And the knower of the field is the living entity, one who is the occupant of that field, who is the occupant of that body, is a knower of that body and of the knowledge and at the object of knowledge. Jnanam. What is Jnanam? Jnanam, we may think, is studying this science, studying that science. But is that what is called Jnanam? Is that what Krishna defines as Jnanam? Jnanam is knowing the Supreme Personality of God or developing certain processes of bhakti which will bring the living entity closer to the Lord, which is called Jnana. That is actually the knowledge, not the science of physics, chemistry, mathematics. These are various sciences of knowledge, right? Angle, the um, streams of knowledge. But knowledge is not just that. That is material knowledge. But one who knows the Adhyatma knowledge, which is science of the self, that is actual knowledge. And what is the object of the knowledge? So, what has to be understood at the end of obtaining that knowledge is the self and the super soul. These are two things that have to be obtained. It will be elaborated in the upcoming verses. So, the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead now starts. The questions are these. Okay, remember the questions because this keeps coming and it might be a little confusing with the words. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna. Simple. Prakriti is nature, Purusha is the enjoyer. The field is the body, knower of the field is the living entity. Knowledge is the jnanam, and jnayam is the object of that knowledge, which is the living entity and the supreme law. So this is what will be elaborated this entire chapter. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead starts to speak, where he explains what is the field, what is the kshetra. Kshetra is the field, the body of the living entity is what he says. And the knower of the body is called kshetrajna. He's explained that in a very simple way, he said. So now Prabhupada is now elaborating on this particular. So the field is the body, the living entity is the knower, kshetrajna, knower of that body, right? So, um, so in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter 2, 10 to 17, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam tata.
2.13.
Huh?
2.13.
13, yeah, 213. Yeah. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. तथा देहांतरात् प्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. So what is that verse? As embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So the kshetra is continuously changing. It means that the field of activity is changing from the body is growing from boyhood to youth to old age to finally to death. That but the kshetrajna, the living entity, is constant. He knows he is a soul and he feels very young, whereas his body has become so old. Because that is how and this knowledge Krishna gave in the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita. You are the spirit soul, there is no death to you, but the body undergoes these transformations. What are the transformations that the body undergoes? It takes birth, it grows, it stays, it gives byproducts, it deteriorates, and it vanishes or perishes. These are six transformations. Yet the soul is constant. It goes through all these processes and witnessing everything that is happening in the body and undergoing and getting their karma onto it, like the the pleasure, the pain, the happiness, distress. It is experiencing. The soul is experiencing all these things by staying in that field of activity and doing the activities in the pits. Imagine like a playground, we are playing. That is our field. And the person is the person who is playing in the ground. That is the living entity. So that is what Krishna is placed. And I'm always distinct from it, right? This is my body, these are my clothes, this is my hand, my leg, this is me, which is the self. So we are always distinct. So that's what this purport explains. Prabhupada is clearly explaining. And in the next section of this purport, he explains about the various sections of Bhagavad Gita, the first six, middle six, last six. Like I said, first six are Bhakti Yoga mixed with the Karma Kanda activities, Karma Yoga. The last is the Jnana Bhakti process. Middle is the Bhakti, complete Bhakti. And in between, there are how the living entities are described and the relationship between the law. So that's what this verses, two verses. Now let's go to third. Mataji, can you read this?
Text 3. Kshetragyam chapi mam viddhi sarvakshetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetragyayo jnanam yatagyanam matam mana. Synonyms. Kshetragyam, the knower of the field. Cha also, api certainly. Mam me, viddhi no. Sarva all, kshetresu in the body. Bharata, O son of Bharata. Kshetra, the field of activities, the body. Kshetragyayo, and the knower of the field. Jnanam, knowledge of. Yat, that which. Tat, that. Jnanam, knowledge. Matam, opinion. Mama, my. O son of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all the bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport. When discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul and the supersoul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the supersoul. Because the supersoul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the superknower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma or Supersoul. One who studies the Bhagavad Gita, studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely, in terms of this Bhagavad Gita, can attain true knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the Super Soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king only knows not only his palace, but also all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Rishikesha, which means the controller of senses. He is the original controller of senses, just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state. The citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the superknower, the individual soul who knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows: Kshetrani sharirani vijam chapi shubha shubhe tani vetti sa yogatma tata kshetra gya uchyate. This body is called the kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord, who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the supreme knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and constitution of the super soul is known in terms of Vedic knowledge as jnana. That is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and super soul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature. And the enjoyer of nature is the living entity. And above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in Vedic knowledge in the Shvetashvara Upanishad 1.2, Bhokta Bhokyam Preritaram cha matva Swaram Proktam iti Vidham Brahmametat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is the Brahman as the field of activities, and the Jiva is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies and there are different owners of the bodies. But because each individual soul has its individual capacity for lording it over material nature, there are different bodies. But the Supreme Lord is also present in them as the controller. The word cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. This is the opinion of Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan. Krishna is the super soul present in each and every body, apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that the real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the fields of activities and the finite enjoyer.
Correct. So this verse Krishna is speaking about the Kshetrajna, elaborating on the Kshetrajna, saying that the individual living entity is the knower, he is one of the knowers. I am also one of the knowers because there are two living entities in the body, right? One is the super soul and the living entity. So Krishna is the knower of all bodies, and each individual soul is knower of their own bodies. And that is knowledge, to understand that one who understands that I I am consisting of both super soul and the soul. That is the person in knowledge. So that's the point. And this field, the living entities have, uh, as long as they are in the body, they continue to uh, interact with the material nature, right? So they're creating themselves into that action and reaction mode. And the super soul is watching them within the body. So, and the super soul knows every body, not just the one body, right? Just the citizen and the king. Citizen knows only for themselves, their land, their property. But the king knows all the lands in the kingdom and all the properties. So, like that. So, super soul, and one who can understand, one who can turn their attention that I am not the only enjoyer in this body. The supreme enjoyer is Rishikesha, who is the master of the senses. Then they have understood the knowledge. That's the point. So everyone knows that they have this body to enjoy. Like, this is the body I have, this is the life I have, they say, and they conduct their life. But is that all? Like, this is one life I have, and this is my body. I got my life. Let me enjoy to the full extent. That's the mindset people have. But is that all we have? Are you the only enjoyer of the body? There exists another enjoyer in the body, which is the super soul, supreme personality of Godhead, and he is called as Rishikesha. He is the master of the senses, not the living entity. Living entity, although it thinks he is the enjoyer, but he is not the enjoyer. The master of the enjoyer is Rishikesha. He is the enjoyer, and he is watching all that we are doing. And if we can turn our attention to him and understand him, he also exists within our body, then that is the knowledge. Okay, so that's the and Prabhupada is giving one example, and he is the controller, enjoyer of the senses. He's giving one example of that means he's a supernova, individual no, in particular invite. The perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of super soul is in terms of the way that literature is knowledge. Okay, if we can understand that is the knowledge. But I like that example. He didn't elaborate much. Here, one who can understand the position of Prakriti, nature, the Purusha, the enjoyer, the Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual self. One should not confuse the three in the three different capacities. The capacity of each is different. The Purusha, Prakriti is the nature, Purusha is the enjoyer, Ishvara is the one who dominates or controls. So that can be explained by the analogy that Prabhupada is giving is the painter, the painting, and the easel. Right? The material world is like the painter is, he can be the living entity and the super soul, the painter. What is by painting using the easel? What is the easel here? The material nature. Material Prakriti. We are using the Prakriti. The painter is using the easel as a Prakriti and painting. And what is he painting? That is his field, using his body, and he is creating some field of activities for himself. So that's a painting. Okay, so we should not confuse his word proper. We haven't elaborated much on that. But before that, he has given, right, with Prakriti, Purusha, and the Ishvara. The painter is, one should know the difference. We cannot combine all these things. Okay. So that's what. So whereas this in the super soul is infallible because it does not fall down, and the individual soul is fallible. That means he is prone to committing mistakes. If he can fall down, and the individual soul is fallible, and the super soul is infallible. What is the opinion of Baladev Vidyabhushan? That Krishna is a super soul present in each and every body apart from the individual soul. As Krishna explicitly says, here the knowledge is to know the super soul, the control of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer. That is the knowledge. So what is the knowledge? And object of knowledge is also the Lord. Knowledge, knowing about the Lord is the knowledge, and knowing about the purpose of the living entity is also the object of the knowledge, is also the super soul. So we'll elaborate more. I hope it is not confusing, right? It's clear, right, Gauri Mataji?
Yes, it's clear, Mataji.
Okay.
So we can relate this to the two birds sitting on a tree with one bird eating the fruit and the other observing.
Yes, that also can be given. Um, Here, Prabhupada has not quoted, but that's a general, usual example that Prabhupada quotes, that the one bird is enjoying and the fruits of its activities, the other bird is witnessing everything. So that is a super soul within the body, and the body and the living entity is enjoying its activities of happiness, distress, suffering, everything. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to the fourth verse. I'll read. We have some people joining, but we'll give them some chance to hear first and then wait. Text 4. Tat kshetram yaccha yadrikcha yadvikari yatascha yat स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च तत्समासेन मे शृणु. Synonyms: tat, that, kshetram, field of activities, yat, what, cha, also, yadrik, as it is, cha, also, yaha, yat, having what, vikari, changes, yata, from which, cha, also, yat, what, saha, he, cha, also, yaha, who, yat, having what, prabhavaha, influence, cha, also, tat, that, samasena, in summary, may, from me, shunu, understand. Translation: now by my please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, when it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what are its influences. What are his influences? Purport: the Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made of, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, from where the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, and what the ultimate goal of the individual soul and is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, their different influences, their potential, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual soul, the Jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. Now, this is that section where Krishna is explaining Jnanam, right? What is Jnanam? He's just describing what Jnanam is now. Now he'll explain what is the process of acquiring Jnanam in the 8th verse. So this is still the second section, 2 to 7. What is Jnanam? What is Jnanam? He's saying how, he's just giving the description. What is the field of activity? When it is the composition of the field of the body, basically. Field of activity is nothing but replace that by the body. It becomes confusing when you say field of activity. Field of activities is we perform activities through a mechanism. That process or where we do that activity is the body. So the field of activity is our body. So he is going to describe the composition of what is that body comprised of, how it is constituted, means comprised of. What is the body? What is it comprised of? And what are the qualities that it goes? And what are the changes? The changes of the body we know, right? It takes birth, it becomes, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, it dwindles, and it vanishes. So that's the changes. Okay. And when it is produced, did it produce now? Like when it is, what the origin? What is the origin of that body? And who that knower of the field of activity sees, and what are its powers? He has, knower of the field of activity is our, if we can know the field of our activities, that I am this body and I am not, and no, like I am not this body. If we can understand that, that is the knower of field of activities. When we say I am the knower of the body, means I'm the body, like I have this body, let me enjoy. But when we say I am, if we can know that I am not this body, I'm making a distinction between me and that body, then that becomes actually the knower. And what is powers? What are his powers that he has? The knower of the body is also explained. So it's just description of what it is. What are the activities the body comprises of? What are the composition of the body is going to tell. Now he said in the beginning itself that I am the knower of this field of activities, right? In the, which verse he said? Third verse. One verse before this, he said, I am the knower of the field of activities. Now he's going to quote more people from the Shastra, like they are rishis and Rishi Bhir, various sages and Vedic scripture. He's also going to quote, not just, he's not keeping himself, okay, if Krishna says he's the knower of the field, is that he is the ultimate truth? No, he's coming up with some pramana. Pramana means which is supporting evidence. He's coming up with more evidence. Like rishis also are all saying, and the Vedas are also saying. That's what this verse is. Bharati Mataji, if you want to read. You're muted. You're
Sorry, Mataji. Where are we?
fifth verse, 13th chapter, verse 5.
13.5. Oh, okay. ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गितं छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमाभिर्विनिश्चितैः. Synonyms: Rishibhi, by the wise sages, Bahuda, in many ways, Geetam, described, Chandobhi, by Vedic hymns, Vividai, various, Pratak, variously, Brahma Sutra, of the Vedanta, Patai, by the aphorisms, Cha, also, Eva, certainly, Hetu Madbih, with cause and effect, Vinichitai, certain. Translation: the knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the super soul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to a different sage. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. As Vyasadeva's father, Parasara, is also a great sage, and he writes in his book of religiosity, Aham Tvam Cha Tatanye, we, you, I, and the various other living entities are all transcendental, although in the material bodies. Now we have fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are in higher level and some are in the lower nature. The higher and lower nature exists due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul and the super soul and the body is made, especially in Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parasara is considered principal among them. The word Chandobih refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of Yajur Veda, describes nature, the living entity, and the supreme personality of Godhead. As stated before, Kshetra is a field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajnana, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.5, Brahma Pucham Pratishta. There is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then, in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute truth in food, one can realize the Absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. In Jnanamaya, the realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then there is a Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya, in which living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of all blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Vyashat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. This means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in devoting himself to the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is a real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as a subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for the truth in the Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of the Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are Na Vyad Ashrute 2.3.2, Natma Shrute 2.3.18, and Paratu Tak Shrute 2.3.40. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities, the second indicates a living entity, and the third indicates a supreme lord. The summum bonum among all the manifestation of entities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's coming to very technical subject. However, we can simplify it. So Krishna is quoting the Shastra and the Sadhu here, right? He's quoting the sages that they also have described that the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities. They have also described who is the field of activities, the body, and the knower of the field of living entity and the super soul are described by the sages, as well as is quoting the Chanda. Chanda means Chandodbhir, means even the Vedic hymns are also described. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all the reasonings as to cause and effect. Now, the sages who have described this are like the sages. Our Vyasadev is the author of these scriptures and is also author of this text here, right? So he has going different as far as the concept. Vyasadev is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. So the duality meaning the living individuals, the living soul, individual soul, and the super soul, they are all two distinct. So that is the duality. So we need to be aware of that we are not one, we are two. One is a living entity and the other is a super soul, and is explained by Vyasadeva first, and his father Parasara has also explained that in his book of religiosity, Aham Tvam tatanyani. So this is being quoted, Prabhupada is quoting because Krishna has said that sages have verified that the Vedas, and the Vedas has also verified that the knowledge of the soul and the super soul is by knowing the self and the super self, is what is quoting different sages. Now coming to the Chandobi refers to Vedic literatures. Chandobihi refers to Vedic literatures. So Taittiya Upanishad, for example, is a branch of the Yajurveda which describes nature, the living entity, the supreme personality of Godhead. So it can be supreme personality of Godhead, Brahman, can be understood in various, based on the various energy levels. So Annamaya, Pranamaya, then Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. So, knowing the Supreme Lord through Annamaya, like Annamo Paramo Brahma. There is one aphorism also, right? So, when they say, when you are able to realize the Supreme Lord through Anna, by food, then that is, you are realizing the Supreme Lord is by Annamaya Jnana. So within our body also there are layers, or they are called as koshas. That's taking this to the next level. Within our body also there are koshas: Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Jnanamaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. So we can tap on all these as we progress and we make progress spiritually. And also, if you can relate to the child growing up, in the childhood, the body is in Annamaya, mostly wanting food. And if one can relate to the Lord by understanding, one can understand the Lord through that Annamaya, then he is making progress in that order. But if you relate that to a child, is mostly in Annamaya, because he only wants food, food, right? They don't have anything else other than to satisfy themselves with the food. That's Annamaya kosha. Now the child grows little bit. Now they want to experience, they want to go out and play, right? So then they want to experience it. So the Annamaya is there, then they add Pranamaya to it. That is, they want to enjoy the life around by mingling with the friends. And so then we can realize the Supreme Lord through that prana. If we can relate and understand the Supreme Lord through that prana, then that is also one way of understanding. It's making progress, definitely. Then comes the jnana. Now the child wants to play. Now the child wants to develop the knowledge. So they go to school, make friends, and they're increasing their knowledge. So through that knowledge, we can understand the Supreme Lord. So that's the Jnanamaya. Then when they start increasing that, expanding their knowledge, they start applying that knowledge. So that becomes the Vijnana. So when we can understand the Lord through the Vijnana that we have obtained, that comes into the Vijnanamaya stage. And finally, what is the effect, cause and effect of all these things is to understand the Supreme Lord. So Supreme Lord is already in the Anandamaya, is Anandamaya stage. But through all these steps, we can understand. That is one way of understanding the Brahman. That's not a complete way, but that's one way of understanding. So relating that to the child also, like growing from the Annamaya stage to Pranamaya to Jnana, Vijnana, and Anandamaya. So that's the different ways of realizing the Brahman. So this is what Krishna has said, and Prabhupada is elaborating by these Vedic aphorisms. Okay, so that knower of the field of activities, he is the one, but he's also supporting by the sages and the Vedic literature. So that's the technicality of that verses. Now he's going to go, still is continuing on the Jnana, where he's going to speak more about the Jnana part, how the living entity. So in the fifth verse he said, right? Fourth verse. What is the fourth verse? Once yet kshetram. What is a brief description of the field of activity, how it is constituted, what it changes when it is produced, and who the knower of the field. So this is the verse is going to expand more and more. The fifth verse was just supporting his point through evidence. That was the fifth verse. But fourth verse is what is going to keep coming back to describe the field of activity. What are its compositions? How the field, the body is made of? What are its components? How changes it goes through? When was it produced? And what are its activities by producing? When it does some activities, what is? And How does it influence? What are its influences? So these are the things that he keeps talking in 6th, 7th, 6th and 7th coming to. Then finally he goes to. So he's still talking about the field of activity and the knowledge. Okay. So we will continue that from next class. 6th onwards we'll continue. Today we can only complete only 5. Okay. Any questions? Does it look technical or making it simpler? Are you able to understand? I'm trying my best to make it simple.
Is it necessary for us to know the Brahma Sutra?
It is not necessary to go back to Godhead, but to know about the Lord in completeness, that definitely helpful. So that we won't at any given stage get deviated. Because our bhakti is not yet strong. So we can support it through all this knowledge. It is definitely not necessary if your bhakti is so strong that if you are in that mind and intelligence completely fixed on the Lord, why do you need all these things? We don't. Since we are not there yet, we will have to support with this so that our intellectual aspect is also taken care. Like by intelligence also, you are understanding that yeah, Supreme Lord is something that we have to aspire for. Make sense? Any other?
We have to, like, we recite the verses, right? So knowing the meaning of the verses will help.
Help, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody? Vanati Mataji, you have anything?
Mataji, I just forgot it's Wednesday today.
Oh,
Yeah,
other
Sunday.
forgotten, I think.
Because I didn't work on Monday. I started on Tuesday, so it felt like Tuesday was Monday and today is Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put a timer for yourself or
Yeah,
alarm.
I think no, it's the first time I'm messing with
I know.
anyway.
You are there
But
now.
the thing is, I didn't follow most of the thing, right? So it's already a heavy topic, so I didn't understand anything. I have to go back and read.
I have the recording. If you want, I can share. I'll put it on the
Yeah.
chat.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll meet next week then, 6th onwards.
Sure.
Anchakalpata, Kripasinda Pevacha, Pattanam Pamela Devasha, Ananta Putivation in the Kijay, Shloka Part. Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.